Can planting trees help us reach our climate targets?
How do we harness the power of the immune system? What new information does the Atlantic Ocean hold?
We'll be exploring all this and more on this season's 10 Things to Know About.
This week, we're finding out how to keep fit and healthy into older age. As we age, our bodies change, and things we used to find easy to do are suddenly a lot more difficult. We associate old age with increased frailty, increased dependency, and a giant pillbox. But we need to challenge that. Growing old is a fact of life, but unhealthy aging isn't. It's estimated that more than 70,000 people in Ireland participate in triathlons every summer, with athletes of all ages and fitnesses competing across various distances of swimming, running and cycling stages. I'm meeting Anne and John from Wicklow, who are in their 70s and still participating in triathlons.
Did the first triathlon in Greystones in 1983 and carried on for a few years, and then family life got in the way, so it was a big gap. So then we took it up again 2008, was it?
2008, yeah.
Yeah. So we've been going at it hammer and tongs since then.
But they are serious competitions, right? I mean,
Yes.
What goes into a sprint triathlon?
750 metres swim, 20k on the bike and a 5k run.
The really good people do it in about an hour.
What?
We do it in 1:15.
And tell me about some of the work that you do to prepare for one of these sprint triathlons.
Well, I would normally do a lot of swimming anyway, probably more than the distance I need to do for the actual triathlon. Cycling, I would cycle 3 times a week, so I would probably do 2, maybe 30 to 40k cycles, and then one long one at the weekend, 60 to 70, which would just be my normal training, to be honest with you.
Wow.
Then running, I would have to do at least one long run a week, with the short ones that I would normally do.
And what about food? Do you have to have a very strict regimen when it comes to preparing for one of these sort of triathlons?
Well, we just try and eat healthily, like we fish, a lot of fish in the diet, and rice, and Anne doesn't like potatoes, so we don't always eat a lot of potatoes.
You are both in your 70s now. How long do you see yourself maintaining this level of activity?
As long as I can. I mean, nothing's really changed for me at the moment. I've had a few problems, but I'm getting over them, and I'll keep going.
We feel more alive when we're doing things. We like doing things together, and
We're always talking about what we do and stuff.
so it helps. It helps.
Something to talk about, if nothing else.
Yes, yeah. I really do believe people are much more capable of things than they realise. All clubs cater for all levels. Start in a small way and you'll build up, and you'll be surprised how much you'll improve. Back when I started swimming, when I was, say, 35 or 6, there was no swimmers even of my age then swimming in the races. They were like 16 was the oldest. And then just now, everything's full of old people. It's completely changed.
Triathlons mightn't be for everyone, but exercise and a healthy diet are crucial to aging well. Sinead McCarthy is a food and nutrition researcher. This may seem like a stupid question, Sinead, but when do we start aging in a bad way?
Well, we start to age from the moment we're born, and chronologically, we're all the same. But biologically, we change. So sometimes you'll see an 80-year-old doing flip-flops and gymnastics, and other times you'll see an 80-year-old barely able to climb the stairs or live independently. So it all varies. But in general, we need to start thinking about ageing maybe after the time we've turned 40.
How does diet play a part in this?
So diet is really important for healthy ageing, because we need to get the right amount of nutrition into our bodies.
We're always told to eat 5 portions of fruit and veg a day. Why is that? What do we get from our fruit and veg?
Well, recently that recommendation has actually increased to 7 fruit and veg a day. The reason the fruit and veg is really important is because we want to eat a rainbow of foods. The carotenoids give the fruit and veg their colour. So we can see the beautiful green leafy veg here on our right and the lovely red rhubarb here on our left. And it's the colour that's in fruit and veg that's really healthy for us to eat. One of the most important aspects in terms of diet and healthy ageing is protein, because we need protein to create muscle. When we lose muscle as we age, we can develop an illness known as sarcopenia. And this is the loss of muscle mass where we can become more frail, we're at more risk of falls, and therefore lose our independence. So if we can maintain our muscle mass, we're more likely to maintain a healthy, active ageing lifestyle.
Healthy ageing is a global ambition. Half the world away, in Melbourne, Sinead's colleague Keelan Murphy is investigating whether nutrients found in fruit and vegetables may play a role in slowing the loss of muscle and bone that occurs with ageing.
Our muscle is constantly turning over. That means that about 1 to 2% of our muscle every day is broken down and built back up again. And that allows our muscle to stay healthy because our muscle breaks down the old damaged proteins and builds back up new healthy muscle proteins that work well. So we want to find out ways through nutrition that we can actually boost these rates of muscle building in order to help people maintain their muscle as they get older. We know that when we look at the population, people that eat diets that are healthy and high in fruit and vegetables tend to preserve their muscle health better as they get older compared to people who eat less healthy diets. And there's lots of different things in fruit and vegetables that could be having a beneficial effect, but one of them is potassium. Potassium is a mineral that's found in food that has a very important role for our overall health. The one everyone thinks of when they think of potassium is bananas, but other fruit and vegetables that contain it are things like rhubarb, dried fruits like prunes and raisins, vegetables like spinach, and potatoes is another big one.
Studies in the United States have shown that if you give potassium bicarbonate supplements to people who are aged 65 and over, they lose less nitrogen in their urine. Nitrogen is a component of protein, so this suggests more protein is being preserved in their bodies.
To date, no one's actually looked at what potassium bicarb does at the level of the muscle, so our study will be the first to do that. We have included 20 women who are aged between 65 and 90, and the trial lasts 10 weeks. And during the trial, the women spend 3 weeks taking the potassium bicarbonate supplement and 3 weeks taking the placebo or the fake supplement. We get the participants to drink what's called heavy water. That will add a tag or a tracker onto amino acids that are floating around in our blood. So these amino acids are the building blocks for muscle.
Make a little hole now.
For each participant, the research team takes a muscle biopsy at the end of the second week of the trial and another sample a week later. They then measure how much heavy water tracer is present in each sample and compare the results to see how the tracer levels have increased.
Using that, we can actually calculate how quickly the muscle has been building over that week-long period. If we find that the potassium bicarbonate increases rates of muscle building in this study, then the next step would be to do a longer study for months or even up to a year or two to examine what the effect of the potassium bicarb supplements are on things that really matter for people's health, things like muscle mass, strength, and their ability to perform functional tasks.
As we get older, we become more prone to age-related conditions like cognitive impairment. Fortunately, though, one of these conditions, often misdiagnosed, can be treated if it's identified early enough. Gary Mitchell has been working with people who have experienced delirium.
Well, delirium is an acute neurological condition requiring urgent medical or healthcare attention. It's something that comes on very suddenly, over hours or days. And it's cannot be very noticeable for family members and professionals looking after people. There are lots of symptoms of delirium. They are often characterized as things like confusion or things like having reduced mental capacity, difficulty making decisions, having hallucinations, and being very distressed.
The symptoms you've described sound like a lot of cognitive impairments. How do you diagnose delirium versus something else?
There's some simple questions and assessments that you can do. The main one is ask that question, has something changed in this person very rapidly? So if someone's neurological ability has changed in the space of hours or days, and it's a very acute or sudden onset, that is likely to be delirium. And that is different to dementia and other neurological conditions, which obviously have a much slower and progressive nature.
Do we know what causes delirium, Gary?
I guess there's many causes, things like medication imbalances. So if a person takes a new medication, or maybe they're on a medication for quite a while, and this medication interferes with other meds, other conditions are commonly associated with things like pain. That pain can cause enough to disrupt the body chemistry to cause changes in the neural pathways and cause delirium as well. Causes also can include things like constipation, where fecal impactation or the bowels are so stretched that the nerves down there can cause the person to be confused or disorientated.
I didn't realize those sort of issues could cause problems with our brains.
Yeah, of course.
At the University of Limerick, Alice Coffey is working with Gary to raise awareness about delirium.
Delirium is experienced mainly in hospitals, and the prevalence rates that we're aware of are that maybe around 20 to 30% of people in hospitals experience delirium. This actually increases when you go to areas like the ICU or CCU or HDU, areas where people are very, very ill. There's also about 60%, 60 to 65% of patients in nursing homes experience delirium. So it's very prevalent, and it's difficult to actually have exact figures for delirium because sometimes it isn't recognised. It is recommended that older people over 65 in particular are assessed for delirium on admission to hospitals, particularly in emergency departments.
Alice is working with Gary as part of the North-South Research Programme, which aims to foster research partnerships across the island of Ireland.
What we're hoping to achieve is an educational resource, a digital educational resource that's suitable for students, that's interactive, that works for them. So we start with a phase where we're looking at the evidence for the prevention, assessment and management of delirium. Then we have a consultation process with the students who have actually experienced delirium in their practice. We consult with them, we consult with experts in the field as well. And bringing all that together, then we are organising co-design workshops with the students. We're working with a learning technologist who will design the resource with us. So the resource should be a combination of video, podcasts, case studies.
So the aim is, I suppose, to get these medical students to be able to recognise the signs of delirium so as not to confuse it with dementia, which often happens in a clinical setting.
Absolutely. Not only medical students, but nursing students, students from allied health professions as well, pharmacology students. We want them to be aware, we want them to think delirium when they leave our educational service.
The desire to halt the ageing process is as old as time. In our mythology, Tiernanog, the land of eternal youth, tells of an island paradise off the west coast of Ireland where beauty and health abound. Legend has it that after departing from a beach, Oisin and Niamh travelled to Tiernanog, living blissful lives together before Oisin's ill-fated return to the real world and meeting his old and mortal end. But in 2003, scientists made a discovery that has fundamentally changed our understanding of the ageing process. Introducing nanog, a protein named after our Celtic mythology. To understand how it works, scientists looked at things at a cellular level. embryonic stem cells have the ability to renew themselves and to develop into many different types of specialized adult cells, anything from a brain cell to a muscle cell. By looking into the makeup of these stem cells, researchers found that they contained very high levels of the nanode protein, which is absent in adult cells, like in our brains and muscles. Nanode's presence appears to be key to keeping these stem cells perpetually sipping from the fountain of youth. And as we go through our lives, we know that youth is wasted on the young. But at least in the case of stem cells, thanks to Nanode and our Celtic mythology, we now know the secret behind keeping things forever young. See you next time.
For many, a key part of ageing well is preserving our eyesight. It can be easy to take our vision for granted, but regular eye health checkups can highlight potential problems. I'm going to get a very unusual portrait taken. I'm going to get a picture of my eyeball.
Okay, are you ready to go?
I sure am.
Okay.
To analyse and interpret my results, I'm meeting consultant eye surgeon Mark Cahill.
This is an image of your eye, and this is the retina. The retina has a nice orangey red colour, and the pigment at the back of the eye is very uniform. There's no yellow spots or no drusen, and the optic nerve is where the retina is coming into a cord back to the brain. It looks normal.
As we get older, our eyesight changes, but vision loss isn't a normal part of ageing. When rays of light enter the eye, they're focused on the retina at the back of the eye. The macula is a small area at the centre of the retina. It's responsible for pinpoint vision, allowing us to see details clearly and to do things like read and recognise faces. Age-related macular degeneration, known as AMD, is a breakdown of the macula. When the macula doesn't work properly, our central vision can be affected by blurriness, dark areas, or distortion.
Everybody starts as dry macular degeneration as an early stage, and then the late can be divided into wet macular degeneration or advanced dry. And they both come from those early dry macular degeneration changes. For the advanced wet macular degeneration, blood vessels appear under the retina, and the retina, you can get a little hemorrhage appearing, and those patients get injections with a medicine that absorbs the chemical that is causing those blood vessels to appear. For the advanced dry, the pigment gets very thin, and you can see that the orange color disappears. Age-related macular degeneration is the #1 cause of blindness in people over the age of 50 in Ireland, and so that's a significant problem.
Dorothy Coughlin was going for a routine checkup when she was told there was a serious problem with her eyesight.
I knew absolutely nothing about the AMD. And Mark said to me, well, there is no cure for it, but there is a treatment. Well, I said, well, that's it, whatever it is. And then I realised, oh, injections. The thoughts then, an injection into the eye. No, that's not for me. But then I said, well, what do you want? Do you want your sight with the treatments that's there, or do you want to go blind? I value my independence too much. I live alone, and if I lost my sight, it would mean going into care. And that didn't appeal to me in any shape or form, so the lesser of the two evils.
Injections it was.
Injections.
And tell me, what are those injections doing for you?
They have held the sight I have steady. And that to me is very, very important. Without the injections, my life would be completely upside down at this stage.
And tell me about your vision, like what have you lost or what can't you see in terms of your full vision?
I haven't full vision. I haven't central vision with the right eye. I have peripheral vision. But for the central vision, I'm completely dependent on the left eye.
Existing treatments for AMD slow its progress, but researchers are investigating the key drivers of AMD to target the disease much earlier. Sarah Doyle is an immunologist at Trinity College Dublin.
AMD is a very multifactorial disease. There are genetic factors that play a role, and diet, lifestyle changes, smoking, all of these things can play a role in your risk factors for getting AMD. But by far the greatest risk factor is age. Our immune cells alter with age. We see that if we look at older people and how they have weakened responses to infection. But actually we know very, very little about how our immune system is aging within our eye. And so that's one of the questions that we're trying to answer here.
And how do you go about doing that?
So we're coming at it from a few different approaches. We have a preclinical model where we have kind of engineered our immune cells to age in an accelerated fashion. And what we're looking at there is to see if we can see if those immune cells are able to breach the barriers that our eyes put up naturally to keep them healthy.
Sarah is also conducting clinical studies with people who have early-stage AMD to track how the immune cells in their blood change as they age and how that impacts on the health of their eye.
So what we're looking for is a very specific gene signature within these cells that tell us that they're a senescent cell. Senescence is one of the ways that our body can kind of shut down cells that are non-functioning. And so when a cell becomes senescent, it goes into cell cycle arrest, which means that it can't divide, but it also means it can't die. And so those cells can then accumulate over time as we age. Usually the immune system is able to clear those senescent cells, and so they're not really a problem. But what's important about these senescent cells is that even though they're non-functioning, they make this inflammatory cocktail. And so this inflammatory cocktail is kind of just this low level of factors that can cause tissue damage if there's an accumulation over time. That's what we're interested in. Can a number of these senescent immune cells kind of gather together and create this level of inflammation that is damaging to the tissue?
And kind of activate the immune system unnecessarily,
yeah,
and cause damage then as a result.
Exactly, causing damage as a result.
By better understanding the eye's immune system and the genetic pathways of AMD, the ultimate aim of the research is to develop new therapies and treatments to help save people's vision. And for many, the future looks bright. That's our 10 things to know about aging well. Next time, could where we live have an impact on our health?